It's my journey, it's your journey. You need my help and I need yours. 'Cause we are...
Hello, family. Welcome to Journeys of Faith Super Saints podcast. Brother Joseph Fry Aldenhoven here at your service. Be sure to look at the description for special information of interest to you. And tell me go contemplating the hidden life of Nazareth. Hidden behind the quiet walls of Nazareth, the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, lived a life so humble and unassuming that it often escapes the notice of even devoted souls searching for signs and wonders. Yet here, in the stillness and daily rhythms of family life, lies a wellspring of spiritual riches for those yearning to draw closer to Christ. At Journeys of Faith, our pilgrim hearts thrill at the enduring example of Nazareth, for it is not merely a distant chapter in salvation history, but a living invitation to contemplate how God chooses to work in the ordinary. The story of the Holy Family is a radiant beacon for anyone devoted to living out the fullness of Catholic faith, rooted in tradition, anchored in magisterial teaching, and ablaze with Eucharistic love. As inheritors of a mission shaped by venerable guides like Bob and Penny Lord, we are stirred anew to enter these sacred mysteries, allowing their lessons to animate our own households, parishes, and communities. What does it mean to dwell daily in communion with the Son of God? How are we, amidst modern distractions and chaos, called to imitate the fidelity, obedience, and hidden sacrifices that sanctified the home of Nazareth? With enthusiasm for our one holy Catholic and apostolic faith, we invite you to embark with Journeys of Faith on a reflective pilgrimage guided by the quiet wisdom of the Holy Family. May their silent witness inspire us to become ever more conformed to Christ with one heart, one mind, one spirit, with one vision. The silent years understanding the hidden life of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. When we meditate on the Holy Family, we naturally gravitate toward the awe-inspiring scenes, the Annunciation, the Nativity, the presentation in the temple. Yet the Gospels are remarkably discreet about the years that followed, those hidden decades spent in the humble home at Nazareth, years largely shrouded in silence. This very silence can speak volumes to us if we approach it with hearts open to the rhythm of God's grace. And here in that modest dwelling, the Word incarnate Jesus lived under the loving eyes of Mary and Joseph, growing in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. Luke 2:52. These were not years wasted or empty, but years filled with daily holiness, an ordinary sanctity so profound that it underpins the whole Christian vision of family life. In their obedience to God's will, their steadfast routine, and their tender mutual charity, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph sanctified the common grind, showing us that hiddenness is never insignificance when lived for God. For Mary and Joseph, these years were marked by silent sacrifice, faithful work, and prayer. St. Joseph, the silent protector, modeled the dignity of honest labor, supporting the family as a carpenter. Our Blessed Mother, full of grace, attended to her household with humility and joy, nurturing her Son while pondering the mysteries of God in her heart. And the Christ child himself, though all-powerful, submitted to the authority of his parents, revealing the majesty of simple obedience. And to contemplate the Holy Family in Nazareth is to discover the transforming power of fidelity in daily life. The Church, guided by the magisterium, points to these silent years as a school of Nazareth, an invitation to learn the virtues of patience, humility, and love that the Holy Family embodied. It is here, in a home that could have been overlooked by the world, that the great drama of redemption quietly matured, teaching us that God's greatest works often blossom in the fertile soil of hiddenness and faithfulness. Take the next step with Journeys of Faith. Deepen your devotion to the Holy Family. Contemplating the hidden years of Nazareth is more than an exercise in holy nostalgia. It is an invitation to transform our daily lives by following the Holy Family's example of humble devotion. At Journeys of Faith, we invite you to walk more closely with Jesus, Mary, and Joseph through exploring our rich selection of devotional resources. Browse our carefully curated books, videos, and study guides uncovering the spiritual treasures of the Holy Family written by experts like Bob and Penny Lord. Enriching your home with meaningful Catholic gifts, bring a touch of Nazareth to your family with statues, icons, and sacramentals that foster prayer and inspire greater trust in God's providence. Available in our renowned online store, deepening your spiritual journey with virtual pilgrimages. Experience the holy sites associated with the Holy Family without ever leaving home, perfect for families, parishes, and individuals seeking to make their faith tangible and alive. Joining a faithful community, subscribe to our newsletter, and connect with a vibrant network of traditional Catholics who share your love for the Eucharist, Our Lady, and the saints. One heart, one mind, one spirit with one vision. Begin your journey deeper into the mysteries of Nazareth today with Journeys of Faith. Nazareth as the school of virtue and humility. Nazareth, that unassuming village nestled in the hillside of Galilee, became the luminous stage for the greatest lesson in humility and virtue the world has ever known. To gaze upon the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, in their simple home is to encounter the silent witness of holiness quietly flourishing away from all acclaim. The ordinariness of daily life in Nazareth was, in truth, an extraordinary training ground. Here, God Himself submitted to the rhythms of work, prayer, and family love. What humility for the King of Kings, the Word made flesh, to be subject to His earthly parents, to labor at the carpenter's bench, to eat at a modest table, and to live unseen by the crowds. The Son of God, under the loving guidance of Joseph and Mary, sanctified every menial task, teaching us that no work done for love of God is insignificant. In their hidden household, a dazzling model of obedience, patience, and self forgetful charity shines. Every member of the Holy Family radiated the virtues that, though uncelebrated by the world, are precious in God's sight: gentleness, industriousness, fidelity, and profound trust in divine providence. For the devout Catholic, Nazareth beckons as a spiritual classroom where souls learn that true greatness lies not in earthly achievement, but in humble faithfulness to God's will, right where we are planted. Through the example of the Holy Family, each home is invited to become a little Nazareth, a place where virtues quietly blossom and Christ Himself finds a dwelling. Daily work sanctified, St. Joseph's example for laborers. The workshop of Nazareth was no grand temple. It was a humble space filled with the familiar scent of wood and the quiet persistence of honest hands. In that sacred corner of the world, St. Joseph, chosen by God the Father to be the protector of the Redeemer and spouse of the Blessed Virgin, reveals to the faithful the holiness hidden in everyday toil. Holy Scripture gives us only glimpses into Joseph's life, yet his silence resounds with eloquence. Every plank he measured, every tool he wielded became an offering to the Lord. He shows us by example rather than word that labor itself is not merely necessary drudgery, but a true path to sanctification when done in God's presence and for His glory. The sweat on his brow was a silent prayer rising up, joining his daily efforts with the greater work of salvation, unfolding in his very home. For all who strive to live out their Catholic faith in the workplace, whether hammering nails, preparing meals, teaching, or tending the sick, St. Joseph stands as a mighty intercessor. The Church has long declared him the patron of workers, elevating the dignity of every profession and dispelling the worldly notion that holiness is reserved for those in cloisters or on distant missions. Under his patronage, every honest task, however routine, can be transformed into an act of love and reparation. Let us contemplate the hidden life of Nazareth and see in St. Joseph's hands a mirror for our own. If God's plan unfolded through the whirring of His saw and the rhythm of His daily labor, then each of us, by offering our work in union with Christ, participate in the ongoing sanctification of the world. Mary's fiat lived out in ordinary family life. Standing at the threshold of the home in Nazareth, what do we see? There are no choirs of angels, no public miracles, no royal courts, only the gentle hum of daily life consecrated by the presence of the Holy Family. This is where Mary's fiat, her let it be done to me according to thy word, becomes flesh day by day. In washing, sweeping, baking, and offering countless silent sacrifices for love of God, Mary models for all the faithful what it means to surrender the entirety of life's ordinariness to divine providence. Her every action, however humble, is colored by trust in God's promise. The mystery of the incarnation didn't end at the Annunciation, it permeated each mundane moment of family life. The Virgin of Nazareth imparts to Catholic homes the lesson that Christian sanctity is achieved not only in cathedrals and monasteries, but also amid the busy noise of chores, laughter at the dinner table, and moments of anxiety or fatigue. She teaches that real holiness is found in embracing our duties and loving those God has entrusted to us, especially when no one is looking. When we venerate the Holy Family, we gaze upon the ultimate model of self giving love. Mary's yes is lived anew in diaper changes and meals lovingly prepared, in prayers whispered as day turns to dusk. In this hidden theater, the will of God is trusted and adored. Mary's fiat echoing through the ages, calling each of us to offer our own daily yes in union with hers. The home as domestic church, lessons from the Holy Family. For faithful Catholics, the home is not simply a place of shelter or routine, but is rightly called the domestic church. Nowhere is this truth more radiantly shown than in the hidden life of Nazareth. Within those humble walls, the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, lived with profound intentionality, expressing obedience, charity, and unity in daily life. Their example sends out a clarion call to all Christian families. Sanctity is first cultivated in everyday tasks, simple prayers, and loving sacrifice for one another. The silence of Nazareth is not empty, but full of the presence of God. Our tradition teaches that within that sacred space, prayers rose like incense, work became worship, and meals were shared in the light of God's providence. Mary's gentle patience, Joseph's steadfast integrity, and the Christ child's humility consecrated ordinary moments, transforming chores, laughter, struggles, and joys into a tapestry of grace. Family routines, meals, prayers at dawn and dusk, labors in the home or workshop were imbued with faith and charity. Here we notice that the path to holiness is paved not necessarily with grand gestures, but with 1,000 acts of hidden virtue. The Holy Family spirit of poverty and detachment gently challenges us in our own homes. They live free of luxury, content with little, but rich in love for God and one another. In an age distracted by noise and consumption, we look to Nazareth and remember that true flourishing springs from worship, gratitude, and loving fidelity. Each family is called to foster the atmosphere of Nazareth, to prioritize time for prayer, to serve one another joyfully, and to welcome Christ's peace in every corner of the home. Ultimately, the lessons from the Holy Family remind us that Christ sanctifies family life. Just as Nazareth was a seedbed for his mission, so too can our homes be places of grace, intercession, and transformation, a holy dwelling where God is loved above all and Christian charity is lived wholeheartedly. Practicing obedience, Jesus subject to his parents. In the quiet home of Nazareth, we find a luminous mystery. The Son of God, wholly divine yet fully human, willingly submitting himself to Mary and Joseph. The Holy Family offers not just an icon of parental devotion, but a profound lesson in the virtue of obedience, so often misunderstood or neglected in our modern world. Imagine the humility required. Christ, the Word through whom the universe was made, learning the rhythms of daily life at the feet of the humble carpenter and his immaculate bride. The Gospel of Luke tells us plainly he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. Luke 2:51. The sacred silence of Jesus' hidden years is imbued with this holy submission. He who commands the angels bends his will to his earthly guardians. Here, obedience is not a last resort nor a sign of weakness, but an act of heroic love. For those seeking to live in union with the church and her teachings, the Holy Family models what the magisterium upholds, that obedience, when freely embraced out of love, forms the foundation of Christian discipleship. The authority of Mary and Joseph over Jesus was in itself a gift of God's providence, a divine trust safeguarded with humility and reverence. This wasn't an abstract or perfunctory obedience. It had hands, feet, and heart. Jesus assisted with the daily work, participated in family prayers, and lived the ordinary tasks of a Jewish boy, all under the loving gaze of his parents. The Holy Family's life admonishes us true greatness begins with docility to God's will, most often expressed through those he places in authority over us. Their example blazes like a beacon for clergy, religious, and lay faithful alike. In Nazareth, obedience sanctified the simple and the small. It transfigured the daily grind into an act of worship. For every Catholic striving for holiness, how blessed we are to gaze on this model and to seek through grace to echo it in our own homes. And Eucharistic foreshadowing in the meals of Nazareth. When contemplating the daily life of the Holy Family, it is easy to overlook the profound spiritual undercurrents present even in the simplest routines, especially their shared meals. Nazareth's humble table was a place where bread was broken and gratitude offered, a quiet echo that prophetically pointed toward the great Paschal mystery. St. John Paul II spoke of the School of Nazareth as the formative ground for Jesus, where daily life became the context for the unfolding of divine mysteries. Meals in the Holy Family were not mere acts of bodily nourishment, but sacred opportunities to deepen their unity and foster gratitude to the Father. Seated at table, Jesus, true God and true man, received the bread made by Mary's hands, while Joseph presided as guardian and provider. Each meal offered in thanksgiving prefigured the Last Supper, when Jesus would become both priest and victim, offering his body and blood for the life of the world. The Catechism teaches that every Eucharist is a foretaste of the heavenly banquet and a representation of Christ's sacrifice. Similarly, the Nazareth kitchen was an altar of domestic liturgy where the Son learned to sanctify the ordinary. The rhythm of take, bless, break, and give resonates between the home at Nazareth and the upper room in Jerusalem, imbuing every simple supper with a foreshadowing of sacramental glory. For the faithful, meditating on these family meals draws us into greater reverence for the Eucharist. If the Holy Family approach their table with devotion and awe, how much more should we, privileged to receive the bread of angels, approach the altar with hearts prepared and aflame? This hidden life in Nazareth is not just history, it is a living lesson on the sanctity of daily life and the anticipation of the sacred in our every gathering. Poverty and simplicity, embracing detachment with Joseph and Mary. To contemplate the hidden life of Nazareth is to encounter a world far removed from the noise and distractions of our modern age. The Holy Family lived in a simplicity that went beyond material poverty. Theirs was a detachment rooted in total trust in God's providence. Consider Joseph, the silent craftsman, whose work provided just enough for daily bread, yet whose heart held boundless faith. He owned little, but in that emptiness, immense spiritual riches blossomed. Mary, too, embodied this holy poverty. The Mother of God, chosen from all women, lived not in comfort, but in humble obscurity. Her Magnificat echoes through the ages. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. There was no craving for worldly honor or possession in her soul. She teaches us that authentic greatness is found in loving surrender. For families and individuals striving to imitate the Holy Family, Nazareth offers a luminous path of detachment. The absence of luxury in their home was not a lack, but a freedom to love, to serve, and to be wholly available to the will of God. This kind of poverty is not misery, it is a profound openness to grace. In imitating Joseph and Mary, we are invited to re-examine what we cling to ask ourselves, in what ways do we allow our material things to possess us rather than possessing things as tools for God's glory. Let us remember, holiness is rarely forged amid excess, but in the daily offering of small sacrifices, simple meals, hidden work, and joyful acceptance of difficulties. Through the humble example of the Holy Family, we discover the liberating beauty of gospel poverty and the unshakable joy that springs from a life entirely entrusted to God. Teaching our children the faith, insights from Nazareth. In the humble home of Nazareth, the Holy Family created a sanctuary where faith and daily life were inseparable. Parents of every generation look to Jesus, Mary, and Joseph as the model for transmitting our beloved Catholic faith to the next generation. In their silence and simplicity, we find profound wisdom for today's families confronting a noisy and distracted world. Mary and Joseph taught the child Jesus in the same way the church has always encouraged, by their example. Every routine, praying the Shema at dawn, blessing the bread at meals, speaking the language of Scripture became an act of devotion. The practiced rituals woven seamlessly into daily rhythms form the heart of their household. In this way, the Holy Family shows us that catechesis does not begin with formulas, but with living testimony. Nazareth also teaches parents the sanctifying power of hiddenness and fidelity. While spectacular miracles and public signs can inspire awe, it is in the patient repetition of daily duties, sweeping the floor, preparing a meal, mending a garment, and kneeling in private prayer, that children observe living faith. The quiet strength of Joseph, the gentle guidance of Mary, and the obedience of Jesus in his youth remind us that holiness is forged not only in grand gestures, but in the quiet persistence of love. As we strive to hand on the truths of our faith, love for the Eucharist, devotion to Mary, respect for God's law, we look to Nazareth for assurance that nothing is wasted in God's plan. Every bedtime prayer, every family rosary, every small sacrifice partakes in the same hidden holiness that filled the little house where the Holy Family dwelled. If we listen, we can still hear their lessons echoing across the centuries, calling us to teach by living and to entrust our own domestic churches to the loving gaze of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Conclusion: embracing the hidden life with the Holy Family. As we contemplate the hidden life of Nazareth, we uncover a treasury of spiritual riches illuminated by the Holy Family, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Their humble dwelling, tucked away from the world's acclaim, is a living gospel that speaks to the vocation of quiet charity, perseverance, and unwavering fidelity to God's will. In our age of noise and distraction, the witness of the Holy Family compels us to rediscover the sanctity of our daily duties, to cherish the unseen sacrifices, and to embrace the silent virtues that form the bedrock of authentic holiness. At Journeys of Faith, it is our deepest joy to accompany you in this spiritual pilgrimage, drawing inspiration from Nazareth's serenity and the radiant example of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. May their intercession strengthen our commitment to Christ, deepen our devotion to the Eucharist, and unite us ever more closely as one church under the guidance of the Magisterium. With hearts attuned to the contemplative spirit of the Holy Family, let us aspire together to live with one heart, one mind, one spirit, with one vision, making everyday moments a joyful offering to God, as they did in their hidden holy home. Be sure to click the link in the description for special news item, and since there is more to this article, finish reading and check out the special offer. Visit journeysoffaith.com website today.
It's your journey, but we won't make the trip alone. journey of faith. It's our journey.